What it do, what it do, what it do, good people. Coming to you live from Taz TV 410. I'm your host, Taz Dean. Before we get started, those that are just new to the channel, I need y'all to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Again, like, share, subscribe to the channel. And if you really want to get that new content, hit the notification bell at the top. Now, people, listen, right? People, when I say I'm excited, I'm trying to calm myself down now. I'm trying to, because y'all know once I get excited, I start stuttering. But we got Coach in the building. I'm so humbled to having this man right here on the stage, on the platform. And I like to say thank you first. And I like to say, King, can you tell the people your name?
My name is Ricardo Gamble. And currently, I'm the head varsity boys basketball coach at Coppin Academy High School and co-athletic director there.
Yeah. Shout out, congratulations. Congratulations. We will get into that, though. But before we get started, where you from? Tell the people where you from.
Okay, actually, I'm from Washington, D.C., and I am an alum of Coppin State University.
Hold up, you're going too fast. We got to talk about college. Come on back. We're going to get there.
Okay.
Let's what sports what all the different sports did you play?
When I was at Coolidge, I played two sports. I played football and I played baseball. I used the wintertime basketball season to do some other things.
Okay.
but I was proficient in all of them, but I just chose to play football and baseball. And I was extremely blessed to be one of the top athletes in both of those sports. And
Coach, let me stop you here.
Okay.
You do not have to be humble on this. No. This is what
Okay.
you're here for.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? This is what you're here for.
All right.
Now it's time to go ahead. Let the people know.
Okay. Well, I was the only one in Washington, D.C. history to actually be most valuable player in my senior year in two All-Star games in the same year. In football and baseball in the same year. I graduated with Adrian Dantley, and there was a debate on Sports Talk Radio, WHUR, at that time, who was the best athlete coming out of Washington, D.C. that year between Adrian Dantley and myself.
You played two sports. I mean, Adrian Dantley, hey, I mean, big praise, but you played two sports. That's more than one.
Well, I think to be honest with you, because of my stature, I always had to prove that I was worthy because I was in a very, very small in size. Each time I did something, people would say, well, I need to see it again, or I need to see more of it. Okay. And so when I received the honor as being the most valuable player in both All-Star games.
Wow, congratulations.
My senior year was I guess you would say it was a storybook senior year, because in football we won the DC championship, which at that time we were the only public school in Washington, D.C. to ever first beat the Catholic school in the citywide championship.
Wow.
So in my senior year, I actually went to the championship and won it in football, and I went to the championship in baseball, but lost. It was a really good year in that regard of going to the championship in both sports and then playing in both all-star games in both sports and winning the MVP in both sports.
Man, look now, see, you was gonna be real humble about that. You was gonna be real humble about that. Let me ask you this, because you went to Coolidge.
Yes.
And Washington, D.C., the D.C. guys, that's like looking in the mirror, for real.
Right.
But we know, the rivalry is thick. It is never gonna go nowhere, which we love. Both sides love it,
Right.
Tell the people over here in Baltimore, how was it growing up over there in D.C. and what made you choose Coolidge to go to school?
Well, I tell you what, that's a interesting story as well. Mm-hmm. I grew up in downtown DC, Northwest DC. I grew up 6 blocks from Howard University. I actually went to junior high school, Banneker, which was across the street from Howard University. Wow. And I did most of my time hanging out at Howard University before the time. I wanted to act like I was in college before college. But some of my homies from Banneker, we had put together a plan. And this plan was to go to high school. We were going to keep our group together, go to high school, and we all were going to actually go to Roosevelt High School as opposed to anywhere else.
Right.
So the plan was in place, and half of my brothers actually got there to Roosevelt.
Okay.
What happened was the address the address that I used, my grandmother's address at the time, I thought was in Roosevelt zone, but it actually put me in Coolidge zone.
Oh.
And at that time, if you know anything about DC, there's a boundary where you have people living close to Roosevelt going to Coolidge and people living close to Coolidge going to Roosevelt. And so it was, for example, you had people that were cousins, relatives and stuff like that going to both schools. So it became like the Hatfields and the McCoys. You think the rivalry between City and Poly was something.
Yeah.
The rivalry between Coolidge and Roosevelt was real intense.
Yeah.
We had the same colors, just like Poly and City. Roosevelt had orange and blue. Coolidge had orange and gray. And so we were both in the same division, and usually whoever wins the Western Conference usually goes to the championship. So that game between Roosevelt and Coolidge, everybody came to. And so, that's what made the rivalry even greater, because you would be in Roosevelt zone and actually going to Coolidge and vice versa. So, they
all mixed in. Like
when the games are being played, you're talking about talking trash. Oh my goodness, man, it was unreal. So anyway, the address sent me to Coolidge. I didn't even know what Coolidge was. Had never heard of Coolidge before I got there. And so, to be honest with you, I boycotted. I decided I wasn't going to go to school if I couldn't go to Roosevelt.
Oh, you was tripping.
So I actually walked the streets for about a week, and at that time nobody was hanging in the street.
Right.
So a buddy of mine said, "Hey, look, why don't you go up to Coolidge, just check it out and see what it's like." And if you go up there, hey, you might find out that it might be, okay. And to make a long story short, that was the best decision I had ever made, was to go to Coolidge, because Roosevelt never went to the championship, but Coolidge did. So what can I say? You know, that was really interesting.
It's funny. It's funny you with the Coolidge, because the day I was talking about Derek Payne, and when I first met him was a scrimmage against Coolidge, Dunbar, Baltimore, against Coolidge of DC at Dunbar, right?
Mm-hmm.
First time I see this man, I'm thinking he's a senior. He smashes. Come find out, they say, oh no, he's a 10th grader. Me and Jamal look at each other like, oh, this is crazy. I mean, he had a little bit of everything, and the whole team, they went hard. It was a great scrimmage. We played about 6 quarters. Yeah, about 6 quarters. But yeah, that's the respect I got for DC players and stuff. I still think we will win, but that's neither here nor there. That is the respect I got for them and the game. Now, after Coolidge, what schools was looking at you?
Well, you know, one of the things that happened to me was that I was offered a scholarship to play baseball at American University, because even though I was good at football, I was more of a natural in baseball.
Okay.
And they were going to offer me a scholarship. And at the time, we're talking in the 70s. I graduated in 73.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, a lot was going on. I was told when I went down for the interview at American University that I would be the first African-American to actually play on their baseball team. And to be honest with you, I wasn't mature enough at that stage of my life to kind of handle something as heavy as that.
Right.
You know, because I was, you know, I'm from the hood, from the hood, because as a matter of fact, nobody even wanted to come down to where I lived in the hood because it was noted for, you know, violence and stuff like that. But, you know, when you live in the hood,
you don't know.
You don't see it the way that other people on the outside see it. I mean,
Right.
it's just a part of life for you. So
hold on, let me ask you this with the American youth. What did your parents say?
Well, that's another story, Dantes. You see, I grew up not living with either parent.
Okay.
I grew up with a guardian. Which was an issue for me growing up, to be honest. You know, I've dealt with that mentally, you know, over the years. And once
I was about to ask you that, like that's something. Yeah, that's tough in itself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, for you to come out like this,
right?
You know,
well. As part of my testimony as a Christian, I use, you know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, things happen in your life for a reason.
Right.
And because of the fact that I was given away, my parents actually gave me away to an elderly woman that I thought was a relative, but was actually not. I, as a young person, I grew up angry. And so, you know, I'm just being honest. I was involved in gang activity when I was in elementary school.
Okay.
And so, as I got older into my mid-teens, you know, I became very athletic in the neighborhood. And so the guys that were involved in that kind of activity saw how good I was athletically. Right. And so, you know, you kind of get a pass.
Right.
And so, you know, most of those older guys, they started looking out for me. You know, they made me stay away from, you know, drugs and stuff like that, even though it was heavy in the neighborhood.
Yes.
I was in environments where, I saw it, firsthand, close up, but, they would tell me, hey, look, you don't touch this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that they carried it. It's a lot different, or was a lot different then than it is now.
You grew up in DC when DC was, whoa, I'm talking about the war on drugs.
Yes. Yep. So it wasn't anything to have several drug dealers in your neighborhood, and stuff like that. But again, they wanted to keep me from that. They saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, because I looked up to those older guys that were hanging on the corners and stuff, and actually wanted to kind of be like them. But they would not allow me to do that, because the more I was in the newspapers and stuff like that, they claimed me, hey, I was one of their own, and they were going to make sure that nothing happened to me, that I was going to actually get out of the neighborhood. So that I was kind of shielded, if you will, and so I kind of got away from that activity, and I didn't go to American University, because this again is part of my testimony. And this is why I'm so passionate today about student athletes doing what they need to do to graduate and go to school. And that's why I work so hard to try to help them, get somewhere, is because of what I went through. And so actually my senior year at Coolidge, I was not supposed to graduate, because I actually failed some classes in my senior year that wouldn't allow me to graduate.
Okay.
And so the teacher wouldn't change the grade. You know the story. But because of the fact that my senior year, all of this is happening, I'm in the newspaper, we won the championships and all of that kind of stuff.
Pressure. It's pressure on them.
It is. And again, I was actually, the principal met me at the prom, at the door, because I said I was going to the prom anyway. Because young, I was arrogant, being a star athlete of two sports. So when he met me, and again, because it's so long ago, I can share this. The principal told me, look, he was personally going to change my grade because of that kind of pressure. He wanted me to go to college and all of that. And what it actually did for me, Dantes, was it didn't make me better. It made me worse.
Okay.
Because once I found out that I had, as an athlete, that kind of power, then I felt like, okay, I can do that anywhere.
Okay.
So he changed my grade and I graduated. And immediately after graduation, my elderly guardian, who I lived with, passed.
Wow.
And it was devastating for me because I was still underage. And the landlord in the apartment where I lived would not allow me to continue to stay there because, again, I'm underage and my guardian has just passed. So I became homeless.
Wow.
And I mean, right after, graduating from high school, all of these accolades, now I'm homeless.
Now listen. Now people listen to this. The highs and the lows. man, go ahead, carry on.
So yeah, So I didn't know what to do at that time. And I received a phone call from a football coach out in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him my situation. I didn't know where I was going to go. So he paid for my plane ticket to come to school out in Iowa, Ellsworth College in Iowa.
Okay.
And so I just packed up everything that belonged to me, put it in a Foot Locker, and all of the furniture and everything else. I just left there. It just,
Iowa?
I went to Iowa. Yes.
Now, people, I went to Dream College in Kansas. The culture shock from the East Coast.
Absolutely.
Oh man, talk to him.
Absolutely. It was a culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
I went to it was Iowa Falls, was where the college was, and there were no Black folks that lived in Iowa Falls. The closest place to Iowa Falls was Des Moines, Iowa. And there were Black folks in there, but not a whole lot.
Okay.
And it was there that I actually really experienced for the first time what it was like to be a Black man in America.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the Midwest, you don't get a chance to really interact with white folks.
Nope.
And
they make that apparent. Like we over here, y'all over there.
Absolutely. And I met this white guy in the dorm who shared what he had been taught growing up, that Black folks grew tails at a certain time of day. And so he was looking for that. And so the reason that he actually changed his way of thinking was because after looking to see if that was going to be true, it didn't happen. So his thought process was, maybe if that's not true, maybe there's other things that's not true as well.
Okay.
And so he started becoming more open, and you could actually have that dialogue where he learned a lot about our culture, and I learned a lot about his, and that was really good. But it was out there that I learned about the KKK, because in my English class, my professor actually brought to class a KKK newspaper. Absolutely. So
you really subscribe, sir. Like this man really subscribed to the...
I had never seen a KKK newspaper before that time. And on the front page, it had like a cartoon picture of a Black person with real big lips. And the caption was, "Would you want your children to play with this type of person?" And that was kind of shocking for me. That was also in Iowa, where the first time that I had ever been called a nigger to my face. And so that was, again, like I said, that was a culture shock for me.
Oh man, let me quit this. One time I go mail a letter. Now I was in Liberal, Kansas, right? Liberal, Kansas is southwest Kansas. I'm talking about it's tumbleweeds blowing down the first time I tried to take one to the airport. I wanted to bring one home to show everybody like it's really Wizards of Oz out here. Well, anyway, I goes to mail some. I go to send some mail off. So the man come up to me and say, "You Dantes Dean, you play for the college." So I said, yeah, I do. How you doing, sir? So then he say, I ain't been to. He said, not until you. I ain't been to a game since Seward started recruiting black players. But you different. I ain't gonna lie. At that time, it kind of stung me. Like I didn't know how to react to that because I knew how I felt that it wasn't right. Like what on a token or something? Like so it'd be subtle racism too. Like it's people, the Midwest is something else. I used to say it's a whole nother country on its own.
Yes, it is. It is. But it allowed me to really see, again, I grew up on the East Coast, DC. It's a melting pot. You know, one of my coaches, my baseball coach, was a white guy. And I loved him, right. You know, and so, you know, there wasn't any problems or issues that I had. But when I got out to Iowa, all of those kind of things really came to the forefront, you know. But I stayed out there for, you know, a couple years and actually, I was placed on academic probation again, you know, because of the arrogancy that took place back in DC. You know, I still didn't learn from that. And there were a couple tragedies that did happen while I was there, where I almost lost my life. Because one time my roommate and I were on our way to the airport to pick up another roommate from DC, and it was raining. Okay. And we actually drove off of a cliff. We lost control of the wheel, went on the other side of the highway and came back off and shot off the highway and went right off the cliff. And it was like being in a movie, you know, as you tumble down the hill and your car is crunching up, you know that you're about to lose your life, and everything is in slow motion. And yet God spared my life through that. I was able to walk around with a scratch. God
is good, man.
So, you know, I'm still arrogant, you know, not quite getting the message.
You feel that it still didn't humble you.
No. And so the next time, I think it might have been a few months later, we got hit by a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour. And he actually smashed the side of our car into the middle. And again, you know, God's grace, when we went to the hospital and all of that, you know, I had some back injuries, but in terms of, you know, us living, no broken bones or anything like that.
You lucky. You was lucky. The first one, you was really lucky.
You know,
man.
You know, so I actually ended up shortly after that being put out of school and sent back home to DC.
Okay.
And when I came back to DC, actually, when I went out to Iowa, I had told a couple of my athletic buddies that I played ball with, because Coppin was recruiting me too for baseball. So I told them to go to Coppin. Right. So they actually came to Baltimore and was playing ball at Coppin while I was in the Midwest. So once they found out that I got sent home to DC, they said to me, they said, "Hey, look, man, you're not in school. You told us to come up here to Coppin. Why don't you come now?"
Yeah.
So so you know, I thought about it, and so while I was thinking about it, I was actually working in a restaurant in Adelphi, Maryland.
Okay.
Washing pots and pans. I go from, and this is how God can actually humble you. I went from 2 years of being the talk of DC, you know, hey, this great athlete, and now 2 years later, I'm washing pots and pans in a restaurant. You know,
I tell that right there, see, that right there, people. an athlete goes through that. Some people would take them over the deep end. Some people they can withstand it and keep going. Good, you got it though.
So in Adelphi, Maryland, the buses only run like a certain time of day, and at this restaurant, I think it closed like at midnight or what have you. So the buses stopped running out that far.
Okay.
So at the time, again, I was trying to establish a relationship with my dad. And that was kind of challenging, but I was trying to actually do the right things. I'm working, at least, and so I didn't have a way of getting home.
Okay.
So I called him up, and this is after 12 midnight. So I said, Dad, you think I could get a ride with you, home, because the buses aren't running.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me, hey, I'm in the bed. I'm not getting up. So, the competitor that I am, and with my stature and all of that, I've always had to fight and prove people that I can do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood there and I said, well, what am I going to do? There's no buses. I can't get a cab. It's too far. So I said, I'm going to walk. So I started walking.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time I got home, and I'll never forget it, because again, this is what propels me. The sun was coming up.
Okay.
And I never forgot that. And that didn't help my relationship with my dad and I.
Right.
The fact that I had to walk from out near College Park to close to Howard University before I got home. So long story short, I borrowed a friend's bicycle after that. And so again, being an athlete, hey, I'm gonna make it work. So one night, I'm riding back, trying to get back home, and 6 white dudes that had been drinking, no doubt, tried to run me off the road, trying to get back into DC.
Wow.
And so they yelled at me I was in the wrong neighborhood. And so long story short, they went up to the light, turned around, came back, and all 6 guys jumped out, trying to beat me. So I'm standing in the middle of the street fighting 6 white guys, man, for my life.
Wow.
And cars are passing me by. And there's one black dude saw what was going on, turned around and came back to help. And the white dudes jumped in their car and took off. They messed my bike up and all of that. And so this guy gave me a ride home. So at that point, I decided I'm going to Coppin.
Okay.
And so that's what brought me up to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. So I've been to Baltimore ever since.
All right. Now tell us how the Coppin go as far as you plan. What was the transition?
I got here, and the first thing that I recognized was that I needed to become a lot more mature than I was in the past, especially in the classroom, and I wanted to play ball. And then I recognized it was something in me that really knew that I could actually play professional baseball.
Okay.
So my first year at Coppin, I was an all-conference athlete in center field. And then the next year after that, I was an All-American. And at that time, my coach at Coppin was actually, you could do this then in the 70s, was sending me to major league camps.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was going to major league camps, I actually was meeting different guys that wanted to know, hey, well, what college was I at? Because they thought that I was so good that they wanted to come and play with me.
Right.
So, so what started happening was, as I went to the camps, other guys started actually wanting to come to Coppin. So we started building a baseball program at Coppin with these guys that I met at different baseball camps.
Look, you just start recruiting. But hold up real quick before we go. I like to commend you. Because you had these obstacles, right? Without a guardian, without a parent, like, and I know it's people there that are just telling you blah, blah, but it wasn't, you overcame a lot at a young age. And I understand you saying, all right, you noticed that when you went to Coppin, you felt like, you know what, I need to mature a little bit in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that maturity right there, it's mind blowing. Go ahead, but keep going. I'm loving it right now. I didn't know, man. Humble right now. Go ahead.
Well, and so Coppin's baseball team was actually getting built, getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I actually met, while I was there, the assistant athletic director at Coppin. And we developed a real bond. And for the first time, I could really sit down and talk to someone, about just life, life issues, and not just sports. And so in talking with him, I found out that he was a Christian.
Okay.
And it was through meeting him that he introduced me to Jesus Christ. And so when we talked about it, and it was the first time that somebody ever sat down and explained to me what did it mean to have a relationship with Christ and what that would mean. And so when I accepted Christ as my personal savior, I had the opportunity, was getting ready to get drafted for major leagues. And at the time, I was actually playing with some scouts from the Baltimore Orioles. And it was kind of like a pre-draft team or something like that I played with them. And so
hey, my phone. That's my phone. Hold on, excuse me, coach.
Mm.
There we go. There's another phone in my bag. I apologize now. Let's go.
So I started playing with them, the scout of the Orioles, and so the Orioles were taking a look at me, and they had an interest in me becoming a part of them for the draft. And so I had shared with my manager, because I was a new Christian and all. I said, I don't mind playing any day of the week, but on Sunday, I want to be able to go to church. It's a new experience for me, and so initially it was, hey, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Until we got on the road, and we were down south somewhere, and I played Saturday afternoon. We got back to the hotel, and I asked the manager to give me some money for me to catch the Trailway bus back to Baltimore, so that I could go to church and worship Sunday.
Okay.
he went through a long spiel. He said, hey, look, people are coming to see you play. If you're not out here, hey, people, will be, disappointed and all of that. So make a long story short, I asked him, are you going to give me the money? He said, no, I want you to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, all right, I'll play. So I went back to my hotel room and I told my roommate, I said, tomorrow, Sunday afternoon will be my last day ever playing baseball. When we get back to Baltimore, I'm going to turn my equipment in, because I just have found out that
They done lied. They done lied.
Even on this level, they're not real concerned about you, the person. They're just more concerned about what you can do for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got back to Baltimore and I told him I was turning my stuff in, he literally called me a fool. He said, you're going to give up a major league career
Mm-hmm.
for religion. And I said, no, not for religion. I said, for the first time in my life, everything that I have experienced has brought me to this point. Mm-hmm. And I said, I have come to know through faith that nobody else was ever willing to give up their life and die for me, but Jesus did. And I said, because of that, I want to give him my life.
Okay.
And so he called me a fool, and that's how we actually parted. Mm-hmm. I gave away all of my equipment, and I never played baseball after that. But I can tell you from experience, God had a plan after that, because he had a calling in my life to work with young people. And you are a byproduct of that. God began to work in my spirit and give me a vision in Baltimore. As a juvenile counselor in Baltimore City, I was working with young people, and I went to Northwestern High School for a client, and the counselor was sharing with me just how disappointed she was in seeing kids dropping out of school in the 9th and 10th grade. And that day, there was a real burden placed on my heart. And I know now it came from God. And the mindset was, well, dropping out in the 9th and 10th grade, that's the end part. Something has happened prior to that has caused young folks to drop out.
Right.
Then you need to start maybe in middle school and find out what's going on to maybe encourage those kids to continue to go to high school. So, so I received just a vision to start a male mentoring program called the Fashionable Gents.
Okay.
At Falstaff Middle School. So with that was actually in '92, and it took off for whatever the reason. We started doing talk shows to the point. We went to WEAA. We were on there. We were on Fox 45. They had us on there. What was happening with these young inner city males going to Falstaff that were changing their minds, and now they were starting to become more interested in academics and kind of doing some things the right way. So once that took off in '93, I want to say it's '93, some people came to me and they said, man, you've been in sports all your life. So, had you thought about developing like an athletic program? I said, no, not really.
Right.
They said, man, you should really think about that. And I was, okay, yeah, I'll give it some thought. And it was then that God started putting together a vision about athletics in Baltimore. And I was like, well, what kind of vehicle can I use to really capture young folks, stir them in a direction where they can actually be successful, use all of my failures as an athlete and put things in place so that they don't have those pitfalls. So,
and listen here, people. You see, I can listen to you talk, but let me hold on. Let me tell you what this man done for me. Chickapin didn't even have a middle school team at this time, right? And I'm gonna be honest. At this time, I'm in the 8th grade. We don't know at 8th grade. I don't even know what high school I was going to. We was granted a middle school team. We was blessed to have a good team that we ended up going undefeated on that team. However, the exposure that league gave to me, like helped me out. Like I went from nobody knows who Dantes is to I hit a shot, and that's history. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not the only one because I don't fuss, but we debate about different leagues. We debate. We the Rodney Bass and the Infest. Our league had the most teams. We had the most teams with the most talent. Like we was gonna really it was really gonna go. And we have a couple pros in that league. There's a couple pros that went through there. But go ahead. Can you carry on?
Okay. So so with everything that I had learned, I said, well, I'll start with 6 middle schools in West Baltimore and kind of see if I could do a pilot. And so I started off with, it was Green Spring, Pimlico, Falstaff, Garrison, and Calverton.
Okay.
And so what happened then was, and believe it or not, I had gotten a lot of flack not to even start that league.
Wow.
I mean, I got a lot of flack not to start it. But because of the fact that I really felt deep in my heart that this was the right vision, the competitiveness as an athlete was, I'm going to do it anyway. And so after the first year, the Baltimore Afro actually wrote a story on middle school basketball that did not exist in Baltimore City. And so once I actually wrote up a planned program. I went personally to each middle school principal and sat with them and asked them to allow me to bring that middle school basketball program to their school. And I shared with them what the outcome would be. And so they started saying yes. And initially, I started using Baltimore City police officers as coaches and stuff like that. And then it branched off, and I said, well, I need a real staff that will make this thing right. So I developed an advisory board and people that could do different stuff for that league. And I wanted to make it solely about the young people in the middle school league. It wasn't going to be about coaches. It wasn't going to be about parents. The stars of the league was going to be the kids.
Felt it too. You felt as a kid. You did feel it. You felt that. You felt it.
And so what we did was we expanded from west side to east side, and then Chickapin actually became one of the central locations where we were having games being played. And we had Baltimore City Police that was on my advisory board that made sure we had adequate security, that no issues took place.
Coach, go ahead. Tell them what was the attendance like? What was the attendance like? You had Northeast Baltimore rocking on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, your dumb balls, your licks gonna have more. But your Northerns, your Mervos, we had more fans at our games than y'all.
As a matter of fact, when I started bringing high school coaches in to recruit the kids in the middle school, the coaches were saying we had more fans in the middle school games than they had in high school, where the stands would be full, I mean, to capacity, and we couldn't let people in,
right?
Because it was so full. I remember Chinquapin even had a band, and you thought it was the Big East being played. The band was playing, the teams, all of the games were competitive, and so I wanted to try to make it as professional as possible because, again, that's my background.
Right.
So I wanted the coaches to get the right kind of teaching. So I started bringing in high school and college coaches to do seminars and workshops to help them to become better coaches. But I tell you, when we had our playoffs and championships and things like that, we started playing our playoffs down at University of Baltimore, and it just took off. News Channel 2 got wind of it, and for 10 years, Keith Mills and News Channel 2 actually followed this middle school program, and on championship weekend, they would always put clips of the middle school championship game on News Channel 2, as never before in the state of Maryland, that we had that. And then we said, well, look, we have so many kids that are going now to high school. We need to do something to really challenge our kids to let them see that this is your next step. So we put on, for the first time in Baltimore, because this was never done, we put on a high school JV Christmas tournament in addition to our middle school tournament, and played them in the same venues. We went to places like McDonough. So you could go down on one end and stands was for middle school, and then you could go down at the other end and there was the high school JVs.
Now McDonald's huge, they gym huge, so yeah.
Yes. And so that's when kids like Mello and a lot of other kids started playing JV, and so we had high school Catholic school JVs, private school JVs, city school JVs, and county school JVs, and everybody wanted to play. And so it became such then that I kept getting word from coaches. They were kind of like, in a way, we're kind of jealous of what's going on. He says, because the kids are talking more about middle school and what went on in middle school and all of the competition and all that. They're not even focusing on high school, and they're playing high school.
Yes.
So, that was the really good part. and you know, with every good part, there's always a challenge. And the challenge that I faced in doing that program, that really at times almost broke my spirit, was the ridicule and the criticism that I got from people, because I wanted to make it all about the kids and as professional as possible. You know, in high school, and I'm sure you can attest, Dantes, that during halftime, people didn't regulate the court, so you had people, you know, shooting basketballs on the court and stuff like that while the teams were in the locker room.
Right.
And so the middle school games, when they tried to do that, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. You're either here to watch the kids. They're the main attraction, not you.
Right.
And so if you get on the floor, I'll have you escorted by the police out. Yeah. So it got to be, you know, they were like, you know, oh, who does he think he is? He's trying to be white. And
you used to give him the same face every time. That's just the killer. You know what I'm saying? The same face every time. Some of them be all big and deep. Yeah, but you stayed sturdy. Ain't nobody know you was a kid from DC that went through all what you went through, so it ain't like you was scared.
Right. And so so what took place with that was, I didn't want, even myself, I didn't want to get any publicity, because I really, in my heart of hearts, I wanted it to be all about you guys, because that was what it was what it was supposed to be about. The program was about you all, and I remember we would bring high school coaches in and sit them on the front row and let them watch you guys in the playoffs and all of that. And I just saw them just recruiting, you know, I mean, just crazy.
Yeah.
And at one time, just about every starting five in Baltimore had kids from the middle school basketball league coming through it, you know. Yeah. And I wanted to actually, you know, not be the center of attraction. I remember, and you know, forgive me for, you know, going off on tangents.
No. Come on.
But I remember, you know, before one of the games, you know, usually we ask, you know, whoever is at the school to, you know, to dust mop the floor before the game, so it's not slippery for the guys and girls to play.
Right.
And it wasn't done when I got there to the gym. So, so, you know, somebody was like, you shouldn't dust the floor. I said, well, it ain't about me. So, you know, I just went on and dust mopped the floor, you know, and somebody said, who is he? And I said, I'm just helping out. You know? And my kids, my kids didn't even know that, you know, that I was, I guess you would say, in charge of the. They just thought I was somebody that just was helping out, you know. And I left it like that because I really wanted it to be all about the guys and the girls that were in the middle school league.
Now, people, I know y'all following, right? Now, you see how he started out, man? He was a kid, but how your mind changed throughout you was about me. You started out about me. Got older, it was all about us, you know? That's just for you kids. And I'm saying this because you're not going, you're going to think one day, you're going to think this way, and another day you're going to think another type of way. Don't take it like you talk to people, you selling out or you doing it. No, you just growing. You just growing as an individual. Now, before we get out the middle school league, you got to talk about my man Joe. You got to talk about that. Now, people. Now your son touched the NFL.
Right.
He touched the NFL, and I don't want to get too much because he will come over here and say his own. He gonna tell his own story, right? But how did that feel as a parent? How did that feel as a parent? You was doing all these for all of us, all these other kids, and then you still hit your own.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, again, as a Christian, looking over my life, there's a saying, no thing that you do for God, He will not reward you and give you something in return. And because I gave up my professional career to walk and follow Him, He in turn put me in a position to actually be a part of other people's careers, helping them along to make it. And it was, for me, it was just as if I had done it. Right. You know, to see you know, those kind of things happen. And you know, my son was also in the middle school league, and then he went on to high school and became a two-sport all-star at Carver. Where he played basketball and football, and I remember adjusting my schedule, my work schedule, and making sure I went to every game that he had. Remember, my dad didn't do that, right? So I wanted to make sure that I was there, you know, for him, and so I didn't miss a game his high school career. Okay. And so I would film it and all of that, and I would make video highlight tapes for him, and so I would send them to college coaches, and I didn't depend on his coach to do it, so I would do that, and so I remember getting a call back from Shippensburg University, and we got a visit. And the coach said, I liked the tape and all that. And we talked, and Joel ended up going to Shippensburg and starring up there as a tight end. And so it was funny. He had never lifted weights in high school until I got him a personal trainer before he got up to Shippensburg. And so then he learned how to start lifting weights and stuff like that. And he went from 196 as a freshman to 270 as a senior in college, you know, as a tight end.
Now, people, I read the article. I read the article. We even talk about it. It talked about you and when he was there, and then you'll see the pictures of him trucking people. You like, man, what are you doing over here? You like a man amongst boys right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But hold on, we ain't gonna tell too much of his story. We gotta let him tell it. We gotta let him tell his story. Right. We gotta let him tell his story. Now, all right. Why did the middle school league stop? What happened?
Oh boy. Okay.
You see, I try to wait to the end.
Okay. Well, I actually ran that league for 16 years. Mm-hmm. Without the support of Baltimore City, North Avenue. I would actually do my own fundraisers. Mm-hmm. I did golf tournaments and things like that to raise all of the money that was needed so that, you know, the middle school could actually, you know, get uniforms and socks and all of that good stuff. Wow. But it came down to Baltimore at North Avenue. They had made a decision that they wanted to take it over. And I had made a presentation in front of the entire school board, but I didn't know that they had already made a decision that they were going to try to take the league over because of the success of the league over the years. Because initially, I had the support of Dr. Ampray. I would meet with him at the end of every season, and he would sit with me and say, "What do you need?" He says, "Because this is working. All over the city is working." And I would get reports from Baltimore City Police that when middle school games were being played in Baltimore City, crime went down tremendously because, you know, the kids were somewhere that they felt safe. You know, the activities were good, you know, and so there wasn't a lot of crime. And so so I guess Baltimore City schools at that point said, well, look, I think it's time for us to take this over. And so at the time, Mr. Wade was still ahead of high school sports. And so he and I forget the superintendent at that time, they had decided that that's what they wanted to do. So I actually turned it over to Baltimore City Schools to run at that point.
How you feel? Did you feel like, you know what? It kind of strong on me for the thing, but you know what? I'm a man of faith. I'm gonna hand it over. I'm gonna keep quiet, and I'm gonna move on.
Yeah. I mean, I was disappointed in the sense that all of the, I guess, the backlash and stuff that I had faced over the years, there really wasn't any, to be honest, between you and I, there wasn't any thank you. You know, it was, you know, hey, this guy, he's trying to run a white program. And I never got that, in the sense that when you're doing something organized and structured, when does that become white?
Right.
You know, to me, it just was the right thing to do. It wasn't the white thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And I also wanted to show that Black men could be in leadership positions and run a program that was structured enough to really create a level of success that had a residual effect. And you know, and it wasn't haphazardly done. And you know, there were fights and stuff like that going on at every game. You know, I didn't want that. Again, wanted it to be a reflection of our culture, that we could do stuff on our own and we can do it well. You know, and again, that's the athlete that came out, you know, the competitiveness to come out, you know. But you know, I gave it over to Baltimore City, and it's funny because after giving the program up and allowing them to run it, and it didn't run the same way, and a lot of the people that were still in the program, like the referees and stuff like that, we even had a training ground for new referees that actually start on the middle school level. I can tell you, what's her name? Angie.
Yeah.
That's one of the head of officials now.
Yeah.
She got her start in the middle school league, you know, and just to see her progress,
yes,
was just really, really something. So, so we helped a lot of areas to make them better. And it wasn't until years later, because I had actually stopped coming to basketball games altogether. I wouldn't even come to a gym.
Wow.
And And it was, this is how I even got to Coppin, because one of the middle school coaches became a college coach at BCCC, and he wanted me to come up just to see him and to see how far he had come.
Wow.
And I told him, I gave him my word I would come. And that was the first time I had come back to a gym since Baltimore City took over the middle school league. And I sat in the gym and honored him that night. And while I was sitting in the gym, I got a phone call from, at that time, was the head coach at Coppin Academy. And he said, "Hey, look, I know you got out of the game and you didn't want to be a part of it and all that." He says, "I need somebody to sit on my bench that I could trust."
Yeah.
He said, "Man, would you really, really think about coming out of retirement and sit on my bench with me at Coppin?" And that's how I got there. And he ended up leaving and going down to Atlanta
Wow.
to coach, and he turned the program over to me. So I've been at Coppin for 11 years, and this is my last year. I'm going to officially retire at the end of the school year.
Hold on. Say it again. Say it one more time.
I am officially retiring at the end of the school year. This basketball season was my last year coaching, and I want a shout out to the team that I had this year, because this was the first time that I ever had a team that had every last player. I had 10 guys on my team. All 10 of them, this was their first year ever playing varsity basketball. Ever.
Whoa.
So it was as if I had a team full of freshmen, even though some of them were seniors, but they had never played varsity before. And we ended up playing Lake Clifton in the regional championship of the Maryland State playoffs. So
wow. Okay.
So I feel like our kids overachieved. But again, just to be able to teach again, teach a group of kids that were hungry to learn and didn't have an attitude about themselves that they couldn't be taught because they knew everything.
Right.
That was a breath of fresh air, in this last season. I mean, we had growing pains, definitely, because they had never played it before. So everything was new to them.
You basketball, you have to put that time in. And for them to get that far, they played overtime. They was definitely overtime. Yeah. Now look, before we get up out of here, is there anything you'd like to say? You got anything coming up? And before we get off, Mr. Selvey, Coach Selvey, we're gonna talk off air. Me and you will talk off air. But I know he gonna say, Chaz, why did you say? So yeah, we will talk off air. But is there anything you'd like to tell people? You got anything coming up?
Well, no. I mean, the only thing that I would say is that if I had to do the middle school league all over again and face what I had to face, I would do it all over again. For the mere reasons that all of you, to me, became family.
Yes.
And so I felt the need to make sure that I did right by you, and so if I had to face that flack, all over again, I would do it all over again. If this would be the outcome.
That's love, and I can speak for the guys and the girls that was in the league and the coaches. Man, you made an impact on us. I'd like to say thank you. Whatever you do in the future, we know it's going to be a success. And don't be a stranger to the show. Don't be a stranger to the show. I love to have you and your son up here because you don't see that a lot, especially both of y'all successful, you know? So, you know, both of y'all got it. Y'all boys need to see men like you two, you know?
Okay.
So that's it.
Well, I truly, again, I appreciate it. I wasn't expecting it. I mean, this came as a real surprise to me, because I gotten a text. You know, hey, did you check out Dantes had put something on Facebook? I said no, and I checked it out. I was like, oh wow,
Yeah,
man.
man.
You know, and again, it just did my heart warm. Because you know, at the end of my career now, you know, I just truly appreciate what you guys are doing, and so this has been an honor for me, and I'm glad that I didn't cry during the interview, but I mean it's really moving in my heart, and I appreciate you even you know, even wanting me to interview.
Man, thank you. This was a treat. I I wasn't too excited. I mean, I thought I kind of calmed myself down, but then you know that's why I didn't want to talk so as much. But I had fun. Just like I said, I'll probably be a nuisance. So, but I'm gonna tell Joe, I'll be calling you probably this week sometime.
Okay.
And people coming live from Ted's TV. Until next time.
All right.
All right.